Well, coming up on the season finale of Connecticut Game Week, we're going to look back at some of the best moments from the 2025-2026 athletic year for UConn. I have to admit, I'm a little bit concerned that Sean's just going to talk about Jonathan the Husky the entire time.
Yeah, Alexa, I'm certain I have no idea what you're talking about. But anyways, Connecticut Game Week starts right now.
Well, from the triumphs on the football field to the confetti-crowded courts and the historic glimmers of greatness on ice, it's been a whirlwind of success, achievements, accolades for the University of Connecticut this past year. We're here to relive what has been a thrilling first season of Connecticut Game Week. Welcome in, everyone, for our season finale. I'm Alexa Harley.
And I'm Sean Humphrey. Certainly no shortage of accomplishments. And it's not just the amazing moments on the field that we'll highlight. We'll also show you some of our favorite stories of the season from some very unique fans. And we'll take you out of this studio and time travel back to NYC in October for a bite-sized story. But first, we can't start off a UConn Sports Year in Review show without talking about the biggest moment of the year. And that is, of course, dual runs to the Final Four for both men's and women's basketball.
And of course, we're going to start with the men who marched all the way to the national title game despite the odds, and talk on the basketball town. I mean, if you were online at all during the tournament, then you know that many analysts, hoop enthusiasts, and even fans counted out the Huskies, especially after that loss to St. John's in the Big East tournament title game. After surviving an incredibly difficult non-conference gauntlet that they went almost through perfectly, dealing with some injuries as well to some of their stars, the Huskies kept themselves in number one seed contention for a majority of the season. Ultimately, that loss in the Big East tournament, conference tournament title game, that at MSG, that earned them the 2 seed in the East for the tournament. The Huskies had to get through Furman, UCLA, Michigan State, and then number 1 seed Duke. Then it was Illinois, and they were at the promised land. And they did all of that thanks to some unforgettable performances from Caravan and Terrace Reed Jr., who carried the team through the first rounds. And then, of course, Indiana sensation Braylon Mullins with the shot of his career in D.C. over the Blue Devils. Now, despite not being the last team standing that April evening in Indy, this past season was a triumphant success, and now many of those key pieces are staying in stores to, quote, run it back again next season. I think we go back to about the end/middle point of the Big East Conference portion of the schedule, where they were kind of struggling with some of those games against Georgetown, Providence, and then, of course, Marquette at the end of the year. And there was a lot of negative energy, I think, from the outside looking in at the team, although if you talk to them, they were ignoring all of that. They knew who they were, they knew where they were going to end up, and boy, were they right.
It was a lot of survive in advance before survive in advance was necessary, and you almost forget this team started the season. What was it? It was either 21-1 or 24-1. I can't remember the exact number, but that next loss came well into the conference schedule with a lot of scares throughout the season.
Well, for a majority of the year, the only L on the schedule was to Arizona, a team that made it to the Final Four.
Without Terrace Reed.
Without Terrace Reed, and I believe without Braylon Mullins as well, 2 guys that were integral keys for success when it came to March and April.
Now, as far as women's basketball goes, defending the crown in a banner year. That was the story for UConn women's basketball this season. And Sarah Strong grabbed the pen to write the next chapter. There were points this season where she led the team in every major statistical category, despite sitting out a lot of fourth quarters. And her dominant campaign ended with her sweeping the major National Player of the Year awards. We saw her take home the AP Player of the Year trophy with her mom present in Phoenix. The Huskies, meanwhile, went through their season undefeated. We saw a lot of confetti fall on this group after the Big East title game and before a memorable line dance at the end of the Fort Worth Regional, which sent the Huskies to the Final Four. Of course, heavy is the head that wears the crown, and South Carolina took that weight off of the upcoming offseason. In the national semifinal game, we have since seen and heard endlessly about Gino Auriemma's confrontation with Dawn Staley. Worth mentioning, we will see these 2 teams face off at Mohegan Sun Arena next season. The group's chemistry was amazing. It seemed like they really enjoyed playing together. Defensive intensity was crazy to watch, but I think one of the most memorable moments of the season for me was the dismantling of Syracuse in the NCAA tournament. I don't know that I've ever seen a more dominant performance in any sport in person before.
I think it says a lot about this team that they were able to go without Fudd for a majority of the regular season in that fourth quarter because they didn't even need their star player anymore. That's just how dominant that they were at every single turning point of this season. And speaking of AZ, it's a pair of hoopers who both start their names with A's. You get the A+ from us on stellar careers here at UConn. That's, of course, Alex Karaban and AZ Fudd.
People are going to think this show is broadcasted in Atlanta as much as we are talking about the A. While we await to see Karaban's NBA fate, we already know where AZ ended up, and that is going first overall to the Dallas Wings. Now, Huskies going in back-to-back drafts. Number one overall to the Dallas Wings. She joins Paige Beckers, and this comes after a season where she finished as a first-team All-American and years after she overcame injury adversity to leave as a Final Four most outstanding player and a national champion as a Husky. What a resume that she finishes with.
And then on the flip side, Karaban, also a historic Husky, a guy who stayed at a program probably longer than a lot of people thought. I mean, it's pretty normal now for guys to enter the portal, go somewhere else, or declare for the draft earlier. He became a Husky of honor. He won back-to-back national championships, goes to 3 Final Fours in 4 seasons. That's something that only players that were part of the UCLA Bruins dynasty in the 60s and 70s did, by the way. Became the winningest Husky ever in the men's basketball side. He ends his career in a national championship game as well. And something else about Karaban and his potential NBA draft stock, depending on where you go and who you ask, he is looking to be maybe the first pick out of the second round. Terrace Reed as well in the draft, maybe a little low in the second round. We're going to talk more about that later on in the show. Well, for the final Best In show, it seems only fitting we show you some of the greatest and grandest moments from this past athletic year for the Huskies, from the gridiron to the ice to the hardwood. We got you covered. That's coming up.
I'm Kevin Ferry. When it counts, you need a top dog on your side. That's Ferry Law, proud sponsor of Connecticut Game Week's Top Dog.
Our Best In show is the best of the season. A historic night at the Rent. Ryan Parham forces the fumble and sparks the celebration against the eventual ACC champion Duke Blue Devils. What a night that was. Years from now, it'll be called a signature win of the Jim Mora era at UConn. It happened in front of the Rent's largest crowd in 12 seasons, many of whom spilled onto the field after the game. Then there's this one, double overtime in the Hockey East Tournament final, and Kyla Josefovic, the senior captain, buries the game winner and sends a record crowd at Toscano into a frenzy. That officially made it a banner year for UConn, who went on to defeat Princeton for the program's first NCAA tournament win ever. Goaltender Kia Chan had 57 saves. Worth mentioning, during the trophy presentation you see now, I did briefly lose my balance on the ice, Alexa. I stumbled, stuck the landing, and lived to tell the tale.
Yeah, put that on your resume going forward. And of course, the moment of the year, honestly, it might be one of the best college sports plays of the past school year, actually. It's Braylon Mullins with the mid-court 3 to send UConn back to the Final Four. Now, per broadcasting rules, we cannot show you the play, but I feel like I don't have to. You've seen it on your screens. It's etched in your memory. I was there literally feet away from the bucket, and how this kind of all played out is, as media, we get assigned seats, whether it's on court level or up in the press box. And I was in the press box for this game, and at halftime, I think they were trailing by 19. And we were all kind of sitting there, and we were like, I don't know how this game's going to end. I'm not feeling as confident in this current moment. But as the second half was going and the lead kind of shrunk all the way down to single digits, we're all sitting there and we're like, we've got a job to do. So we all go downstairs and we're getting ready with our cameras, because if they pull this off, it's straight to the court trying to grab whoever sinks the game-winning shot. Eventually, it's Braylon. The reaction from the crowd, not just from UConn fans, but like security personnel, just jaw dropped. Nobody could believe what they saw, and that's a video that I have on my phone, and it's something that I will probably brag about for the next 20, 15 years about what I got to see.
Saw the Clark Kents, the journalist, had to hop into the phone booth and get to work when Braylon Mullins hits the shot. You mentioned the 19-point deficit at the half. I was on the shuttle in Fort Worth after UConn's tournament game, and I told the bus driver, yeah, UConn's down about 19. It doesn't look good. And then I'm on the phone with my dad in the hotel room when Braylon Mullins sinks the shot. It's one of those that you remember where you were. We remember where we were. I'm sure you remember where you were as well. Football season gave us some huge moments and storylines. We already mentioned the win over Duke, one of the biggest in program history and one of the Rents' greatest games ever. It went back and forth until finally the Huskies outlasted the Blue Devils in a 37-34 win. Then there was Jim Mora. He went from winning his 100th game as a head coach and leading a historic Husky turnaround in his years at UConn to becoming Colorado State's head coach after the regular season came to a close. All of a sudden, it was no more Mora, as Alexa said at that time, and the Jason Candle era began. And how about Skylar Bell? He was a finalist for the Biletnikoff Award after he finished in the top 5 for receiving yards, touchdowns, and receptions. He ended his season as UConn's first ever consensus first-team All-American. What a season for the Huskies. Meanwhile, when you find a hobby and stick with it, it can change your life. And collecting sports cards has brought one UConn fan closer to the game of basketball. Coming up, we'll hear his story and what UConn Stars cards he's got his eye on.
Also ahead, I bring you a story about a young man who had an unconventional journey to the Final Four back just a couple of seasons ago when they went to Arizona, thanks to a big bet on the Uno table. More Connecticut Game Week when we come back.
Connecticut Game Week Best in Show is sponsored by New Balance of South Windsor and Avon.
Normally, our Icon segment highlights a UConn athlete, past or present, who we want to know a little bit more about. But in our season finale, we're using this time to highlight fans who represent UConn Nation in unique ways, starting with a Newington man named Ryan Sheil, who uses a long-standing connection between sports cards and players to invest in his Husky fandom.
The two things that really drive value of a card is desirability and rarity. So when those two things intersect, you have some of the most valuable cards.
And some of Ryan Sheil's cards are more than just rare, they're one of one. He's lived in Connecticut his whole life, and being a Husky fan comes with the territory. But the way he expresses his fandom goes beyond checking the box score.
To me, collecting cards is the best way to connect to the players and the teams. It feels like you have a stake in the player and the team when you own their cards, when they're playing really well. The values go up, which is cool, but you're also root for them at the same time.
Throughout his life, UConn women's basketball has given Ryan plenty to celebrate. But it's not always easy to get a hold of one of the reigning national champions in a 2.5 by 3.5 inch form. Take leading scorer AZ Fudd, for example.
If you want her cards, they're very hard to find.
She's a key starter for the Huskies, but in the card world, the adversity that led to the 2025 banner has kept her out of the rotation.
She's not in many products because she was injured when a lot of the new Panini stuff was coming out. So she only has really one flagship product, and that's the Panini UConn set, which is a dedicated UConn set.
That means it shouldn't be a surprise to learn that the Fudd card he's holding is rare.
This is one of her top cards in existence, one of only two one-of-one autos that she has.
And while some cards go for thousands or even hundreds of thousands, don't expect the Newington native to give this one up anytime soon.
Because it's virtually irreplaceable, one of her top cards, and I think super undervalued right now comparatively to other players. That's a long-term hold for sure.
As women's basketball's popularity grows, the trading card market booms. But Ryan says there's also an inverse effect.
I can't tell you how many people I know that were not fans of WNBA prior or UConn prior that got into it through sports cards, and now they're obsessed. I think right now we're in like the Jordan era of the WNBA with Clark and Paige and Juju Watkins coming up. I have some Juju Watkins as well. So I think looking back, this is going to be a transformational period for both the college level and the WNBA. So, yeah, I'm investing.
Well, this past NCAA tournament run for men's basketball brought so many memorable moments. We talked about Braylon Mullins earlier, but one of my favorite stories is one that takes place off the court. Elijah Randolph, who was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of blood cancer back in 2023, ahead of UConn's eventual run of the Final Four that was in Phoenix that same year. And during treatment in the hospital during that year, he had a special visitor, head coach Dan Hurley's wife, who challenged the young man to a high-stakes game of Uno, where Elijah made the bet of a lifetime.
While I was in the hospital, I loved to play Uno. It was kind of my escape. Miss Hurley came up to my room. She decided to put some stakes on the line. I put Final Four tickets, and I said, well, Miss Hurley, if I win, can you take me to the Final Four? And she says, okay. A week or two later, I get this text message from Miss Hurley, and it's saying, come on, sweetie, pack your bags and you're going to the Final Four.
And he says, well, Miss Hurley said we can go to the Final Four. And I said, get out of here. So then I said, let me see your phone. And I'm thinking he's really pulling my leg. And gave me the phone. Sure enough, her text was on there. So I called the number just to make sure it was her and it wasn't a scam.
That Final Four was only the beginning for the Randolph family. Elijah watched the UConn team cut down the nets, and from then on there, he was hooked on the game. And this past September, he was added to the Huskies roster as their official team impact player.
He absolutely changes the mood. When we see him in the locker room after games, like we know everything's going to be good, to be honest. It's usually after a win when he's coming to, so I mean, it's even better of a feeling having him in the locker room. And it's just like a family atmosphere every time he comes in the room, and very connected. I mean, I love seeing him every time.
Going through the highs and the lows of last year, having a guy like Eli in the locker room after the game, after a win or after a loss, really just like brought like a good vibe to the locker room. I mean, knowing him and his story just really inspires us. I mean, that's so huge, especially for me. Like, it's like, oh man, like a kid really looks up to me.
And Carl Randolph, Elijah's father, says that the way the players have embraced Elijah and their family has made all the difference.
For them to take the interest in you and for them to show and give back the love and the compassion that they have for him, he really believes he's part of that team, and I embrace that. Because he goes into the locker room after each and every game. He texts the guys text him. They really look at him as their little brother. And I can't tell you what it's done for us as a family.
Currently, Elijah is in remission from any adverse condition, but he says that every day he's been trying to win his battle with cancer in honor of his childhood best friend Reagan, who passed away a few years ago.
From day one, since I was diagnosed, I just told myself that I'm not only going to do this for myself, but I'm going to do that for Reagan, and I'm gonna fight, and I'm gonna fight for her as well, and I'm gonna accomplish what she didn't. So and that's where I am today, and I've accomplished it, and I'm proud of myself for doing that for her as well, and I loved her so much, and I'm sorry. My parents always used to tell me, what you focus on the longest grows the strongest, and I've kept that with me for a great amount of time, and I will continue to keep that with me.
Well, no matter how you slice and dice it, everyone's got their opinions on what belongs on pizza. Pineapple, ham, maybe garlic salt. You're Dan Hurley. Coming up, we're going to get the Huskies' take on the ideal pizza topping concoction. Well, this past year of game week, Sean and I have gotten the pleasure of traveling all across the country, especially in the month of March. Before the college hoop season even began, we started off our travels hitting Store South for Big East Media Days.
And that feels like forever ago, but we made the trek to MSG in NYC and talked X's and O's, roster construction, and pizza. Now, we know Connecticut is the pizza capital of the world to some, but some New Yorkers will probably have a thing or two.
They have an opinion, I feel like, yeah.
Yeah, it's controversial, but, you know, we don't want to start a war here. Instead, we asked some Huskies what their go-to pizza toppings were, and to this day, their answers still surprise us.
Oh, all right, so,
Oh, shoot. All right, it's going to sound crazy.
You're not going to like me for this one. I'm a plain pizza guy.
I like ham on my pizza, ham and cheese, to be honest.
I like black olives. I put some spinach on there.
Like, I will go cheese and I will say light sauce. Like, I don't like a lot of sauce. I don't like too much, like, on my pizza like that.
Maybe some tomatoes.
salt, maybe some Parmesan.
I get hate for this, but I love a good pepperoni pineapple on pizza.
Garlic salt at times. I mean, that's offensive.
I'll throw some chicken, maybe some sausage.
I like ham and pineapple, and like I know people would kill me if they heard that order.
And then topping-wise, I mean, if I'm in the mood for pepperoni, I would say if I'm going for like a specialty pie, I would like, for me, like a penne vodka pie with the prosciutto.
And I might put on some pineapple.
These guys are horrible. I mean, this is, and Alex is, I mean, you could say Taris, she's from Missouri. You know, Solo's from the DMV. But Alex just being from Mass, the fact that he is so inept is jarring and scary.
All right, and speaking of the jarring and scary pizza answer guy, Alex Caravan, then of course Terrace Reed Jr., who fills his pizza up with literally everything. They're going to find their NBA home soon this summer. Caravan in particular had some hoopla at the draft combine after he finished first in each of the shooting drills. Both Reed Jr. and Caravan are projected to go anywhere from late in the first round to early in the second round. And then UConn fans already have a lot to look forward to next season on the hardwood. It starts with a 2024 national title rematch, exhibition style. That's right, UConn and Purdue will meet on Tuesday, October 27th, and it will mark the first trip to CT for the Boilermakers in nearly 30 years.
And when we return in the fall, football season will be upon us, and the Jason Candle era will officially begin on the field. And the Huskies will have their hands full at home with 3 Power 4 opponents, including a matchup with UNC that'll see Bill Belichick's return to New England. They'll also host the James Madison Dukes, who made the college football playoff last season. How about that? You know, the home schedule is a little bit packed for the Huskies, and they have a good handful of home games. I mentioned in the break, we never mentioned our top pizza toppings. So, Alexa, I guess before we go for the season, what are your go-tos on pizza?
I feel like mine are non-controversial. I mean, a classic, a margarita, but I personally like a sausage pepperoni combination on there as well. I've been really into a like pesto prosciutto type of pizza lately, so that's something else.
I like the artisan pizzas. I don't mind that. I think my big controversial opinion is I'm not too much a fan of ham. I don't mind pineapple. Wouldn't go out of my way to get it, but I don't like ham too much. Pepperoni's cool. Sausage is cool. You know, I'm pretty cool when it comes to pizza.
Pretty cool when it comes to pizza. That's your stage name, Sean.
Yeah, I guess that'll be the last thing people hear of us for the rest of the summer. Have a good summer, everyone. We will see you in the fall next time when Connecticut Game Week returns.